Snowboarding is a sport where style isn't just an accessory, it's the backbone. From park legends to backcountry pioneers, the riders we're about to talk about aren't just athletes, they're cultural icons. Like any sport that pushes limits, it comes with its own share of love, hate, and debate. Some riders are celebrated for their approach, their vision, and their contributions to the sport, while others stir up debate, with fans divided on whether they've earned their place at the top. Torstein didn't just ride the mountain, he owned it, with style that turned every trick into an art form. Fans loved Torstein because he brought personality and humor back into freestyle snowboarding, making the sport feel more accessible, more relatable. His smooth spins and effortless flow bridged the gap between technicality and creativity. In a time when snowboarding was pushing towards bigger tricks, Torstein was the guy who could make the impossible look chill. Every edit was a masterclass in how flow could be the star. No gimmicks, no forced tricks. Just clean, fluid lines that made you believe the scene was as much about creativity as it was about progression. And it wasn't just his writing that won him the audience. His YouTube presence, casual demeanor, and infectious energy made him the people's rider, a snowboarder that you could relate to. Whether he was landing tricks no one thought possible or simply having fun in the backcountry, Torstein always felt like a friend, not a brand ambassador. That's rare in a sport that often feels like it's trying to sell something. But as with any legend, Torstein didn't escape the hate. While fans loved his creativity, some critics argued he leaned too much on flow, more showman than soldier. The irony? Torstein proved he could win. X Games golds, Dew Tour titles, he had the trophies to silence anyone questioning his ability. He just chose a different path. As contests turned into spin count battles, Torstein doubled down on personality and creativity. He wanted the scene to stay fun, expressive, unpredictable, and human. To some, that looked like slacking off. To others, it looked like saving the sport from taking itself too seriously. And he wasn't just a park guy. When Torstein moved into the backcountry, he proved his creativity translated to untouched terrain too.
I believe snowboarding is an art form, just like painting or music is, especially when it comes to capturing it on film and creating moments that inspire people to go out and try this awesomeness for themselves. Just to realize how insanely freeing it is and how there's endless ways to do it. This just happens to be my way, and I feel really lucky to be able to share this path with you, this strange life.
Massive booters, deep powder, and film parts that blended freestyle with freeride. He brought the same flow to natural lines that he once showed in contests. It was proof that his talent wasn't limited to spin tricks or park rails. Torstein didn't just fall into being the culture icon, he made it. His edits, his creativity, his approach to the scene helped shift the way riders approach freestyle snowboarding. He didn't just land tricks, he landed a new culture for the snowboarding world, one that valued fun and expression over technical domination. He created space for riders to experiment and think outside the box, which gave rise to a new wave of creativity in the scene. And while not everyone may agree with his methods or see him as the technical pioneer, there's no denying Torstein's influence on how we look at style in snowboarding today. He shifted the conversation from how hard can you go to how much can you express, and in the end, that's what truly made him iconic. Max Parrott is one of the most consistent and decorated slopestyle riders to ever hit the circuit, and that's why people have a hard time ignoring him. He's a champion, no doubt. With multiple X Games golds, plus a silver in 2018 and a gold in 2022 at the Winter Olympics, he's proven himself time and time again on the biggest stages in snowboarding. Fans respect Max for his precision. His runs are clean, calculated, and damn near flawless. His spins are textbook, dialed in every time, making the complex look simple. To watch him ride is to watch pure technique, mastery over every axis, every turn, every pop. In a sport where risk often leads to failure, Max takes control and makes it look easy. But let's be real, the same precision that makes him so dominant is also what makes him so divisive. While his consistency is admirable, it also comes with the perception of being robotic. He's a machine built to win, and some people feel like that takes away the soul of snowboarding. In a sport where style and creativity are just as important as tricks, Max's almost clinical approach to competitions rubs some viewers the wrong way. His runs are perfect, but are they fun? Are they exciting? Is he making snowboarding better? For some fans, Max's focus on contest results over the freeride style and innovation that many snowboarders admire. He's the guy who's always chasing the next podium, perfecting his spins, but not pushing the boundaries of what snowboarding can feel like. He's the athlete who's so determined to win that he loses the very thing that makes snowboarding rad for a lot of people, that raw, unfiltered energy. If that wasn't enough, there's the perception that Max's rise was too quick, too polished. The underdog story that snowboarding audiences love, not really Max's journey. Instead, he's always been on track, a competition-focused media hype track with sponsors and all eyes on him from the jump. That said, the controversy around him makes his comeback even more impressive. After being diagnosed with cancer in 2019, Max didn't just recover, he came back and dominated.
Been diagnosed with the Hodgkin lymphoma. It's been hard news to take for me, my family and friends. It was very hard to digest.
In my mind, you know, like when you hear cancer, I kind of see death, you know, and or weakness. But Max was like, no, it's a good cancer, you know, like he was so positive about it, and it was like, man, I was kind of crying on the phone. I wasn't crying, but like my eyes got all watery, and I was like, man, are you sure, you know, like you feel good? Like, he's like, yeah, no worries, I'll be back in 6 months. Okay, man, you're confident? I'm confident as well, you know. Get done with your chemio and come back. We'll train hard and we'll make sure you win the first event that you do.
I've been living a nightmare for the past months, and all I was dreaming was to be here today. I only had 2 months to get back in shape for this, which was kind of almost impossible, you know. Honestly, getting this here is like, it's like the candy at the end, you know. It's like, whew.
His resilience and determination brought him a level of respect even from those who criticized his style. Whether you love him or hate him, there's no denying his mental toughness and his ability to rise above any obstacle. Max is the kind of rider who divides crowds. Precision and perfection on one side, passion and personality on the other. You can admire his technical prowess, his commitment to the culture, and his undeniable accomplishments. Or you can be frustrated by the lack of creative flair and the way he symbolizes the corporate push of this world over the roots that made it a true counterculture. Either way, Max is a rider who matters. He doesn't just show up to win, he makes sure you remember his name. Jeremy Jones doesn't just ride the mountain, he becomes it. A true pioneer of big mountain freeriding, Jeremy redefined what the game could be, taking it from the half-pipe and into the untamed wilderness. His approach to riding is as raw as it gets, pulling himself up mountains without the aid of helicopters or resorts, simply using his own 2 legs and his relentless spirit. What made Jeremy so loved wasn't just his riding, it was his authenticity. When the sport was all about competition, corporate sponsorships, and high-speed tricks, Jeremy turned inward. He walked away from the spotlight, choosing the mountains instead, seeking untouched lines and exploring the beauty of snowboard culture as a personal, spiritual journey. Through his films Deeper, Further, and Higher, Jeremy introduced the world to the backcountry scene in a way no one had ever done before.
First heard about the kind of the trilogy concept, I definitely thought that it was a risk worth taking. I remember the first time Jeremy called and kind of laid it out, it was something that I wasn't going to, I could not pass up.
Deeper, Further, Higher, I really use that as a mantra. That deeper phase for me was going to mountain ranges that I knew very well and getting into that terrain that you could only get to with camping and long days of hiking. With Further was take what I learned with Deeper and ranges I know, and then, you know, if it does work out, now I can look at the world's mountains and go to these more exotic places I know nothing about. The deal with Higher is, okay, now I've gone deeper and I've gone further, now let's tee up some major descents on big, serious lines. It's not just these lines you see in the movies. Some of the scariest stuff I've seen in the mountains is in intermediate terrain. So then it becomes a question of, do I stop going into the backcountry? And that is not really an option. What I get out of walking into the mountains makes me who I am, and without that, I'd just be a shell of a person, and I don't think my kids or wife would want to be around that.
Snowboarding is just a part of Jeremy, and I would never want to change that. I would never want him to do anything other than what he's passionate about. It is so in his heart and soul, and that's what we love about him so much.
Snowboarding became not just a sport, but an experience. one that felt as much about self-discovery as it did about athleticism. Fans flocked to Jeremy not just for his technical skill, but for the way he made the game feel real again. His riding wasn't about landing tricks, it was about connection. To the mountain, to the moment, to the freedom that started it all. Jeremy reminded everyone that riding wasn't just something you did, it was something you felt. And in a sport that's grown increasingly commercialized, Jeremy's authenticity shines like a beacon. His work with environmental causes, his push for more sustainable practices, and his fight for protecting the backcountry, all of it comes from a genuine place. He's not just a rider, he's an advocate. Someone who understands that the sport is about more than just tricks. It's about the preservation of the mountains themselves. That same mindset led him to create Jones Snowboards, a brand built for riders who live for the backcountry. Focused on sustainability and performance, it wasn't just another company with his name on it. It was an extension of his values. Every board was designed to respect the terrain he loved most, blending innovation with environmental responsibility. But as much as he's loved for his passion, his lifestyle and focus on backcountry riding have made him a bit of an outsider. The contest scene didn't always see him as the best because he wasn't interested in spinning for the judges. He wasn't pushing the envelope in the way contest riders were. Instead, Jeremy was out in the wild, taking lines no one else would dare to ride, pioneering a new vision of snowboarding. For some, that felt like he was isolating himself from the competitive side of the sport. As the industry became more mainstream, the discipline became about spectacle, slope-style courses, massive jumps, and all eyes on the biggest tricks. But Jeremy, he's the quiet rebel, a rider whose heart belongs to the mountains, where the only person you compete with is yourself. He's the perfect example of why snowboarding is as much about soul as it is about skill. Jeremy's love for the mountains transcends the typical definition of rider. He's a true ambassador for the culture's roots. His followers adore him for his realness, his environmental work, and his refusal to compromise for fame. He's the kind of rider who makes snowboarding feel important again. If snowboarding had a Hollywood Walk of Fame, Louis Vito's star would sit right next to the biggest names in entertainment. With his dazzling smile, perfect half-pipe runs, and mainstream sponsorships, Louis become one of the most recognizable faces in the scene. But fame isn't always a free pass. For Louis, his media presence has been both a blessing and a curse. For fans, Louis represents the glitz and glamour of the culture's evolution into the mainstream. His stints on Dancing with the Stars, appearances in commercials, and sponsorships with brands like Nike prove Louis has done what few snowboarders have: make snowboarding a household name.
The way that they speak about Louis is as if he were their own.
Welcome to the court, professional snowboarder and Ohio native, Louis Vito.
He's a great ambassador to the sport. He comes out, he signs autographs for hours on end. I mean, it's just like a lot of travel, a lot of time commitment, and it's a lot of dedication that a lot of people don't have.
You can't help but love Louis. He has always given back, not just since he's become famous.
He is always there to support anybody, and that's why it's so much fun to support him.
At one point, he was in their shoes, a little kid that looked up to snowboarders, and he wanted to be that snowboarder that he could just make a difference in another kid's life, because he was there.
You got some nice boards here.
He's very approachable. He's somebody that they can talk to. I know they look up to him, but he's not somebody that they just look at him from afar.
Thank you so much, Louis, and don't you be changing.
Trust me, I got these people to smack me around if I do.
That's right.
I'd rather miss a couple days of training because I was doing something like this, because this is something that means a lot to me and means a lot to the community.
His bubbly personality, paired with flawless runs and technical skill, made him not just a competitor, but an entertainer. For the younger generation, Louis made the game approachable. He wasn't just the guy you saw on the mountain, he was the guy you saw on TV, in magazines, on social media. To them, he was proof snowboarding could be more than just a sport. It could be a lifestyle, a brand, a career. Louis made the culture cool for kids who may not have even known what a snowboard was before they saw him on the screen. But to the purists, riders who lived and breathed for the sport before it hit prime time, Louis' constant media spotlight felt like overexposure. His fame came as much from TV appearances and sponsorship deals as it did from contests. To some, that blurred the line between athlete and celebrity, between a snowboarder and a showman. He's a guy who's always smiling, always polished, and always on stage, but sometimes that scene is too much. Purists argue that Louis' focus on media appearances over grassroots culture takes away from what the scene was meant to be. They say his perfect runs and big sponsorships are more about creating a brand than contributing to snowboarding's true soul. Still, no one can deny his technical ability. Louis' halfpipe runs are flawless, and his consistency is unmatched. He's a multiple X Games medalist, perennial contender, and one of the most disciplined riders. His big tricks, ability to land run after run, and status as a dominant force can't be ignored. The divide with Louis isn't about talent, it's about what he represents. To some, he's a sellout, and to others, he's the face of the culture's bright future. But the truth is, Louis done more for the game's visibility than most riders could hope for. Whether you love him or hate him, there's no denying he's paved the way for snowboarding to become a global phenomenon, appealing to both the core and the mainstream. Travis Rice didn't just push the limits of snowboarding, he redefined them. When the industry started evolving into a sport dominated by contests and halfpipes, Travis Rice carved his own path. His vision wasn't about perfect runs or contest golds. It was about chasing bigger lines, deeper powder, and pushing the boundaries of what the game could look like. From the art of flight to the creation of the Natural Selection Tour, Travis revolutionized the sport with his combination of athleticism, creativity, and cinematography. He wasn't just riding, he was telling a story. Every drop, every line, every turn was captured with an artistry that hadn't been seen before in snowboarding. He made backcountry riding feel like an expedition, blending the physical and the spiritual in a way that felt cinematic, epic, and, at times, surreal. Fans adored him for his fearlessness. No line was too steep, no mountain too wild. Travis was the embodiment of what it meant to be a true freerider, seeking the unknown, pushing past the limits of what was considered possible in the craft. He was willing to go places no one had ever been before, both physically and creatively, bringing a new dimension to the sport. His creativity and commitment to taking the culture to new frontiers made him an icon, a man who could make even the most extreme tricks seem poetic. While his vision and contributions to the sport are undeniable, not everyone embraced Travis's approach. As his films exploded in scale, some purists felt the sport was becoming too polished, that snowboarding was turning into a movie set instead of a lifestyle. The Art of Flight and his later projects raised the bar for cinematography, but also raised some questions. Was the game becoming more about spectacle than the ride itself? For many riders, the sheer scope of his expeditions, helicopters, remote peaks, million-dollar productions, felt distant from the everyday experience of snowboarding. Yet, that's exactly what made Travis polarizing. He was the dreamer, showing what was possible even if most people would never ride those lines. In time, though, he brought it full circle. With the Natural Selection Tour, Travis proved he hadn't lost touch with the sport's roots. He built a platform that merged backcountry adventure with real competition, giving riders a new stage that felt both raw and revolutionary.
Where did this idea come about? Because you were so heavily focused on filming, you were literally revolutionizing snowboard cinematography, and then to pile on putting on an event of that magnitude, when did that enter your mind, and when did you start thinking about it?
I've been on the contest grind, loving it, trying to balance like putting together a legit part and doing a lot of contests. And I think there was an element of like, what if, we were able to put on this kind of like gathering or event where you had conditions legit enough that you had like the real top contest guys could, kind of blend that narrative. All that being said, I think that we see a path towards health and sustainability and growth through a bit of, sharing, I think, the original fundamental ethics around natural selection into, because there's great people who want to do amazing things in each one of these places, and really we're just looking at it as like, can we be helpful? Can we offer support? Can we offer a little bit of structure to, putting on some of these best-in-class events?
But no matter what side of the debate you fall on, one thing is clear. Travis Rice is a true pioneer. He didn't just ride, he shaped how the industry was seen by the world, elevating the sport beyond competitions and into the realm of art. His influence isn't just in the tricks he lands, it's in the way he reimagined what snowboarding could be. Respect him or not, Travis Rice has undeniably left an indelible mark on snowboarding, and his legacy will continue to shape the sport for years to come. Shaun White is snowboarding's greatest champion, and also its biggest lightning rod. With 3 Olympic golds, 15 X Games titles, and halfpipe domination that redefined the sport, Sean's legacy is undeniable. He became the face of the culture for an entire generation, breaking barriers and setting records in a way no one had before. He didn't just compete, he transformed the sport, blending raw talent with a polished image that made snowboarding mainstream. Sean's skills are as sharp as they come. His runs were a mixture of technicality and flair that made fans scream, and his ability to land tricks at the highest levels of competition made him nearly untouchable. From revolutionizing the double cork to creating new tricks, Sean's innovative approach to the halfpipe made him a legend, not just in snowboarding, but in the global sporting world. With that fame came a level of scrutiny that only grew as the culture's commercial side exploded. For many, Sean's image as a corporate figurehead represented everything that was wrong with snowboarding as it moved further into the mainstream. To hardcore snowboarders, Sean became a symbol of the industry's sellout culture. His massive Nike sponsorships, the media frenzy around his Olympic appearances, and his involvement in Hollywood and the commercial world led to accusations that he was more about business than the sport's soul.
It was like really hurtful at the time when certain things would happen. And, you know, my family at times wouldn't be on the road with me, so I had people around me that were like considered buddies and family and whatnot. And like, you know, like crazy stuff would happen. On the other side of things, I've got the industry saying he's not core because he's not going to hang with these guys. And he's not coming to the premiere. And he's not doing, you know what I mean? I'm like, God, why would I want to be a part of this thing that's, you know, kind of doing that stuff to me? You know, it's kind of like high school type stuff. And I gotta say, like, it's become like what feels like a popular sort of soundbite to say, like, he's undeniably a champion, but, you know, he doesn't really represent the sport. And I always thought that was so bizarre to me. And I gotta say, you know, it was pretty disheartening to hear that come from Donna. Recently, I listened to the, you know, her podcast on the way down. I was like, wow, that's so heartbreaking, you know? Because like what part of me doesn't absolutely love and breathe and die for the sport and bleed for it, you know? And
it wasn't just that Sean was commercial, it was that he owned it. The clean-cut, marketable image, the TV commercials, the mainstream interviews, it all rubbed the snowboarding purists the wrong way. They saw Sean as someone who had sold the craft to the highest bidder, pushing for the limelight and spotlight rather than staying true to the gritty, rebellious roots of the sport. And let's not forget, for all of Sean's Olympic golds and X Games titles, some felt his domination in the halfpipe didn't have the same soul as other riders. Sure, his runs were technically perfect, but were they as exciting as Travis Rice's backcountry lines or Jeremy Jones's freeride lines? To some, Sean's focus on contests and halfpipe was more about perfection and precision than pushing snowboarding's creative boundaries. The flip side, Shaun White changed the game forever. He brought mainstream recognition, massive sponsorships, and a legitimacy that the sport desperately needed.
Having a certain amount of success in my career put me in a place where I was speaking for the rest of the community. You know, I was on the world stage and I was speaking for a group much larger than myself. And so I'm like, well, this was kind of thrust upon me without me asking for it, but I do have that ability to have a voice, and so how am I going to use it? And after retiring, that voice didn't really go away, and I felt like, man, I have the ability to make change within the sport, and I need to do that. I need to do that for everyone else still competing in the future generation.
He made snowboarding cool for kids who didn't grow up on the slopes, and his legacy brought the sport into new arenas, from Olympic podiums to Hollywood red carpets. To fans who embraced him, Shaun White was the rider who made snowboarding possible in places it was never before imagined. Call him a sellout or a savior. Either way, Shaun White wrote the culture's biggest chapter. He legitimized it globally, opening doors for the next generation, and played a key role in the game's meteoric rise to mainstream culture. But as with any icon, the debate continues. Was he the savior of snowboarding, or the person who sold its soul? It's not just about the tricks, the medals, or the brands. It's about how these riders move the sport forward, or sometimes how they push it sideways. Whether you loved or hated the riders on this list, one thing is clear. Each one of them left an impact. They shaped how we think about style, technique, and culture in snowboarding. They changed the game and left us debating who should have done it differently. Now, it's your turn. Did we get it right? Who made your list of most loved or most hated snowboarders? Who's missing and why? Drop your takes in the comments. Let's settle this debate. And if you loved this breakdown, make sure to check out our other videos. Thanks for watching, and stay wicked.